everyone. Thank you so much for coming here. My name is Malis. I'm part of iCAAD, and you're here in the Albert Suite. Welcome. So you're here to hear from Andy Ramage. So Andy... Oh, and Rory.
Yeah, you've got
Hi.
two of us.
Oh, yay! Even better. And Rory. So I'm so sorry, Rory. I don't have your bio. For some reason, it didn't get printed on the document. But I guess I'd like for you guys to actually just come straight to introduce yourself, because we're running out of time. So I want you to make the most of it. So over to Andy. Thank you.
Perfect. Am I on? Is this okay? So what we're going to do is, Ruari and I are going to speak. I've got a TEDx talk on Thursday, which we're really excited about. So I'm just going to do a bit of a dry run of the TEDx talk, just to sort of let you know what we're all about. We're all about prevention. And then Ruari's going to jump in and just give us the backstory to OneYearNoBeer and effectively how this all came about. All right, cool. So I'll just start. A few years ago, I watched a film starring Bradley Cooper. And in this film, Bradley played an out-of-work, down on his luck writer who couldn't write. He was unfit, unhappy, depressed. And he bumped into an old friend, and this old friend said to him, look, I've got this pill. This pill will give you the full access to 100% of your brain, rather than the small amount we usually use. With nothing to lose, Bradley took the pill and became limitless. Armed with more mental processing power than anyone else on the planet, he quickly found his way to Wall Street and made millions. He was irresistible to everyone that he met. In effect, he became limitless. But, like all these pills, there's always a consequence, there's always a downside, and very quickly a dwindling supply and negative side effects sent poor old Bradley on a Hollywood roller coaster to destruction. But I remember thinking at the time, just imagine a pill like that really existed. Just imagine there was a pill that made you fitter, faster, healthier, wealthier. Just imagine that pill existed. Well, it does. And this is my story of how I found it. So let's start at the beginning. At age 16, I was gifted the most wonderful opportunity to go and play professional football. And to set the scene, I was tipped for the top. I was tipped to play for England by my mum. And there's only one thing wrong with my mum's prediction. I wasn't actually very good. And I turned up on the first day of training in amongst the 40 other professionals and realised I was probably in the bottom 5. You see, like, I had the heart of a lion, but the control and technique of Bambi. So very quickly I realised I had to think differently. I had to think outside the box. I started to read about self-development. I started to read biographies of famous footballers. I started to think differently, play differently, act differently, prepare differently, and against all the odds, I made it into the professional team, and I scored in the professional league, my boyhood dream. It was a thunderbolt from about 5 yards. But I did it. And then just when things were getting exciting, I got injured and my career was finished, unfortunately. But that experience of thinking differently and getting a different result never left me. So I packed up my dodgy knee, put gel through my shocking footballer's hair, which was long and ginger, to be fair. I don't know where I was going with that one. And I set sail around the world and arrived back to London a few years later to make my fortune. And more by luck than judgment, I stumbled into the world of oil broking. The guys in the pits with the bright jackets on, screaming and shouting at one another. That was me. And I loved it. It was exhilarating. It was fast-paced. It was electric. It was the closest thing I'd ever found to professional sport. There was even the odd slide tackle and the occasional sending off. And I loved it. And in record time, I built a big business. Fast forward 10 years. And I'd sort of reached that place that conventional wisdom tells us where happiness resides. I had the car, the career, the cash in the bank, the family, the lovely wife. And I remember turning up to work one day as I sort of moonwalked into the office expecting to hear choirs of angels and harps playing. And there was nothing. I was a bit like, I was like a 5 out of 10 in terms of my well-being and my happiness. This didn't make any sense to me. So I looked around the rest of the city and found more of the same. Broken homes, broken bodies, broken minds. I didn't aspire to any of that. What was the point? But rather than do something drastic like resigning and heading off to a monastery to find myself, I thought, no, I'm going to stay with the career that I love. I'm just going to do things a little bit differently. And it was in this moment Bradley Cooper came back to me in a vision and he said, Andy, you remind me of a film I once starred in. I said, oh, Bradders. That's what his friends call him. I said, Bradders, let me guess. Limitless. He said, no. I said, I've got it. A Star is Born. He said, no. The Hangover. Right? And he was right. My life had turned into one long hangover, and it was in that moment I remembered the Limitless pill. And I thought to myself, just imagine I could find that pill that would make me fitter, faster, healthier, wealthier, with the only side effect being happiness. Just imagine I could find that pill. Then I resigned. And I set sail around the world to find that pill. I trained with the best of the best, from thought leaders, big thinkers, to coaches. I even went back to university twice to do a degree, then a master's degree, and still I couldn't find the Limitless pill. And then more by luck than judgment, I stumbled across a study by a guy called Professor Kevin Moore of the London Royal Free Hospital. And he had just conducted a study into the largest ever study into a 28-day break from alcohol. And I found the pill. You see, the results were staggering. These were just normal drinkers, by the way. On average, they lost 3 kilograms in weight, reduced their liver fat by 40%, reduced their chance of type 2 diabetes and contracting certain types of cancer. Professor Kevin Moore was so enthused by the results that he said, if these results were found in a pill, everyone would want it, and it would be worth billions. And it was in that moment I knew I had a choice. I had a choice to continue drinking, as I'd always done, or I could take the Limitless pill and stop. I took the Limitless pill, and this is what happened. At first, I was afraid. I was petrified. There's a song in there, isn't there? And I was scared stiff because it was how I celebrated. Drinking was how I commiserated, met my wife, met my best friends, entertained my clients, did business, all via drinking. So the thoughts of stopping scared the life out of me. But there was one thing that scared me more than anything. Would I become boring? I think it's the greatest fear when anyone takes a break from alcohol. What lies beneath? Is it that you're boring? I agonized. Would my wife run off with the really exciting postman? My best friend had just put me in the boring corner and said, don't come out again until you start drinking. You know, what was going to happen to fun time, 4 drinks Andy, and how the hell was I going to dance at weddings? This is the things that scared the life out of me, but I thought, I'm going to give this a go, and just 28 days later, my life was fundamentally changed. You see, I woke up, it was a Saturday morning, my eyes were bright, I'd slept like I hadn't slept in years. I felt invigorated, I felt alive. My wife was in love with me for once. I was in love with her, the kids were even on top form for once, and I thought, I want more of this. But what was interesting, just around this point, the social pressure was really starting to build up. People I admired within my own industry told me on no uncertain terms that if I continued taking the Limitless pill and not drinking, and stopped entertaining clients by drinking, my career might be over. Right, that's serious social pressure right there. But unperturbed, I kept going. 28 days became 60 days, became 90 days with the Limitless pill, and my life was transformed. I lost a lot of weight, 3 stone or 42 pounds in the end. And my body fat went from 30% down to below 10%. I got my mojo back, my time back, my energy, my zest for life back. I started to get up early in the morning before the alarm clock at 6 o'clock, then 5 o'clock. I hadn't seen 5 o'clock since I was running around Ibiza. And in that moment, those 2 hours, I got fit, I got healthy. I co-founded a movement called OneYearNoBeer.com with Ruari Fairbairns, which is a 28, 90 and 365-day challenge. We wrote our first book, the 28-day alcohol-free challenge, all before the kids were awake. I was fitter and faster than I'd ever been. And the boring thing, that never happened. My wife didn't run off with the postman, I think. Fun time Andy started to show up all over the place without the booze. And I even managed to dance at a wedding. It wasn't nice to look at, it wasn't pretty, but I did it. I was getting my energy back, my mojo back, my zest for life back, and things were starting to happen more and more in my life that just said to me that this alcohol-free adventure that I was on, this Limitless pill, was making a huge difference to my life. And the number one thing for me, my relationships with my wife and my kids were better than ever. But there's more. A year prior to taking the Limitless pill and stopping drinking, I went to the cardiologist. And the cardiologist said, Andy, you have heart disease. Well, that's not good for someone in their mid-30s. Even I know that. Fast forward, a year after taking the Limitless pill, I went back to the same cardiologist. And when I walked in, it was like seeing Professor Kevin Moore all over again. He said, your results are staggering. Your resting heart rate's gone from 68 to 44. Your cholesterol levels are amazing. Oh, and your heart disease, you've stopped it. In fact, we were so interested by your results, we took a closer look. You've reversed your heart disease. Pretty cool, eh? Now, that wasn't all down to the Limitless pill and not drinking, I admit that, but it was 100% down to the Limitless pill and not drinking that I had the consistency to exercise every day, that I had the confidence to change my diet, that I had the mojo and the get up and go to reduce my stress levels, which all culminated in reversing heart disease. Pretty cool. Now, I know it's difficult to get your head around because I do feel a little bit like a ginger Christopher Columbus on the shoreline saying to everyone, look, don't panic, the world actually is round, or like someone in the 1960s putting their hand up and saying, I think this smoking thing is bad for us. I get it with the alcohol thing, right? 80% of the adult population currently drink, and it's difficult to see that all these benefits are waiting for you, but they are. And even if I look around and think about the millennials, the research tells us that they're drinking less and less. In the last 10 years, the number of young people that are remaining completely abstinent has doubled, which is pretty cool. And I know it's difficult to get your head around in the same way that we now know the world is round and that smoking kills. So just to sort of help you get a different perspective on this, because it's not about giving up forever. It's about taking a break. It's about transforming your relationship with alcohol by taking the Limitless pill. But to get a different perspective, let's just turn this into a real world scenario. I want you all to imagine you're aliens. And you've all just come down from planet Zog, and you want to look and you want to hear about the Limitless pill. And you also want to hear about this alcohol pill that 80% of the population is taking. So let's start with the alcohol thing, right? Currently, as mentioned, 80% of the adult population are choosing to drink alcohol and choosing not to take the Limitless pill. You know, and I don't want to get too bogged down in the negatives around alcohol. Let's just start with some of the positives. There has to be some upside, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. And I've had some great times, don't get me wrong, whilst drinking. I've got to admit that. But I think the fun factor is fake fun a lot of the time. When you zoom out and get some space, you start to realize what it pretends to give, it takes away. When it pretends to help you relax, it makes you more anxious and depressed the following day. When it pretends to relieve boredom, it actually steals your mojo and you'll get up and go to do interesting things that would replace that boredom. When it pretends to offer connection, it destroys relationships. I think we all know that. And I get it. Lots of people turn to alcohol to self-medicate away pain, and I totally understand that. But at the same time, that is taking away your opportunity to put proactive, healthy measures in place that will really deal with that underlying pain. And that's sort of the upside. The downside I could go on about forever, and I'm sure, you know, right here I'm preaching to the choir in many ways, but you know, I don't want to start banging on about the fact that alcohol is now directly linked to cancer in over 50 studies, specifically breast cancer, or that 50% of all violent crime is linked to alcohol. I don't really want to talk about that, but what I want to talk about is the hidden consequences, the fact that it'll take away your time, your energy, your zest for life, your oomph, your mojo, your consistency. These are the things that people don't realise. And, you know, and when you zoom out a bit, you start to realise we have this thing on earth called compound interest. And if you think about it, over the average drinking career, I would guesstimate that people spend somewhere between £100,000 and £300,000 on drinking versus taking the Limitless pill. And this is just the start. When you start deciding to take the Limitless pill, people want to come out from the woodwork, friends, family, relatives, and twist your arm into drinking again. We have this overwhelming social pressure. And let's not forget, of the 80% of people that drink, 7% of people become addictive or dependent on this thing that is alcohol. And I'm sure everyone in this room is linked to someone that's had horrific circumstances around alcohol, or that's been linked to their family and their friends. But that's enough about the alcohol thing. Let's just talk about the Limitless pill. The Limitless pill will make you fitter, faster, happier, healthier, more vibrant, more consistent in everything that you do. The Limitless pill might help you get up a bit earlier, to get fit, to get faster. It might give you that consistency and that motivation, that productivity that will make you better in the office and at home. The Limitless pill will even give you brighter skin. It will give you brighter eyes. It will even give you sober hair. Apparently that's a real thing. More bouncy and voluptuous, wasted on me clearly. But you get the idea. But there's only one side effect with the Limitless pill, and that's happiness. You know, so I know you're not aliens, clearly, but just imagine, I'd like to challenge you for the next 28 days. You've got two options. You can, one, continue as you've always done around alcohol and drink, or you can take the Limitless pill and stop. And just imagine all those benefits that I've spoken about today are waiting for you, and you'll never know unless you try. And there's nothing to give up and everything to gain by taking the Limitless pill. So I'll ask you all, of the two options, to continue drinking or to take the Limitless pill, what one will you choose? Thank you. That's my TED Talk, and now I'm going to hand over to Ruari for a little while, and then I'll jump back in. But thank you for listening for that.
Good job.
Thank you.
Nice one. Ted, I'm going to love it. What did you think? We'd love to hear your feedback from
Yes,
Andy.
please,
I
any
mean,
feedback.
at
I've
the
got a
end
few
would
days to-
be brilliant. I've definitely got some feedback for you.
good.
I'm going to give you a really quick bit of background, and then I'm going to tell you a bit more about the business and how it all operates, and really a call for help, a call for action from experts and people in collaboration. That's really what we're here for. Ultimately, we all want the same goal, right? A happy, healthier place. I just want to remark as well that beginning of the conference was absolutely amazing to talk about that one love, really powerful. So my background, ADHD didn't fit in at all when I was younger, really struggled with that, and suicide attempts when I was young didn't fit in, was going to go into counselling. At the age of 14, I wrote a letter to Richard Branson saying I'm going to change the world one day and I'm looking forward to having lunch with you. And that comes from a kid who was born on the island where pretty much most people only ever end up in alcoholism or farming or forestry. So at 15 years old, I set up my first business, and by the time I was 25, I'd set up 5 different companies. None of them were successful. I think I had early stage work addiction, but we don't talk about that yet, do we? And it was actually through the TV program The Apprentice that I came down to London and found myself as an oil broker. And 2 worlds collided, partying and going out and entertaining and being successful. And the more I was of the former, the more I was of the latter. And I was a very successful oil broker for 13 years and worked alongside this gentleman here. But as I was furthering through my career and started to find a wife and things like that, there was a scratching in the back of my brain that what was perfectly normal in the city was really causing me harm, and that was the drinking. And for me, just to put into perspective, it was probably only twice a week, once with work and once with friends, which in the oil industry, I'm a lightweight. In the city, I'm a lightweight. In the west coast of Scotland, I'm a lightweight by society, or by health standards. I was a heavy drinker. So I'm against huge corporate pressure. I mean, my boss told me if I stopped drinking, I was going to be committing commercial suicide. That's pretty powerful pressure. And then colleague pressure and friends pressure. I actually decided to take a break, 90 days, and I was absolutely blown away with how much life improved. I just felt so much happier and healthier. I lost a ton of weight. Really, ADHD is like an amplifier. You add anything else into that mix and you can get a mess. So you have to remove all these things. And I didn't realize that until I took my break. Over the first year of being alcohol-free, I actually grew my successful business by another 50% and reduced our costs by 30%. And I said to my boss, could you imagine these stats across the board, like with all these city professionals? No, he didn't get it. And that is the thing that really we got together. So Andy and I worked together, and he'd gone off to set up another firm. And we got together, and he'd just done 6 months alcohol-free. And I was absolutely blown away. I mean, he was literally half the man. The guy had lost stones of weight. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And we sat together and we thought, look, there's something really big here. If you're a normal social drinker and you've got this itching in the back of your mind that you want to change, there's very little support for you. You need to admit, and go to the GP, and all that stuff was not on our radar. Like, we didn't have a problem. We were just normal drinkers. So we wanted to create something which would help people realize what their life is like if they remove something like this. And that's where we came up with OneYearNoBeer. We launched it in 2016 and we gave it all away for free. Andy and I wanted to create massive impact. As I mentioned, that letter that I wrote to Richard Branson, it was having a really big impact on the world, and I didn't see we could do that whilst charging for people. Well, the thing about free is that it's free for somebody, but it still costs money, and we ran up enormous bills, 6-figure personal bills, basically funding for a lot of people to get sober. And almost by luck or by chance, Andy said, look, let's try charging for the program. At this point, we had a 90-day program. And so we started charging people a very small amount of money in reality, a lot less than what they were spending on alcohol. What did it come out as originally? About £100 it was for the 90-day program. And we were amazed. We were amazed that people were happy to pay, but also the work that we were doing with Stirling University at the time showed that people engaged more, and they were applying more of the principles and having better success rates because they had skin in the game. Well, this totally transformed what we were doing. There was now ability to fund the thing. We reinvested and relaunched the platform in 2017, and we got a lot of press. We were across the world. We have. Sorry, I'll come back to that. That's the ADHD all over the place. And so in that first year of revenue generation, around about the middle of the year, It was a very stressful time, and I'd been working with a PR agency and they weren't very successful, and I came out and I sent 10 tweets to journalists about a 30-year study that came out around alcohol, and I said, hey, have you seen this? And 3 of the journalists replied, and one of them was a BBC World News journalist. And about a month later, we were featured on BBC World News, a 10-minute feature in over 200 countries. Pretty amazing feature for us and very fortunate. But a friend of mine called me up and he said, ciao, Ruari, obviously in Italy. And he said, I've just seen you on BBC World News. I think what you're doing is amazing. I'm meeting the Dalai Lama next week. Would you like to meet him? And surely enough, I got to sit down with the Dalai Lama. That was an incredible moment for me. Excuse me. Really, I'm not religious. I was brought up a Catholic, but if I was going to associate myself with a religion, it would be Buddhism. And so for me to sit down with the Dalai Lama, and the words that he spoke to me was when I realized that this is the reason why I was put here. So I came straight back to London, handed in my notice as an oil broker. I knew I couldn't do another day doing that job. And my bosses, I'd created a very successful business, were like, Ruari, are you insane? All you've got to do is sit on your laurels, turn up each day, and in 5 years, you're a done man, you're finished, you're out. I couldn't do another day. There was something much bigger at stake and important to do here. So since then, in 2017, we reinvested again in the platform, and we're now over 40,000 members in 90 countries. Andy mentioned we launched a book. Last year, we decided that we needed to reinvest in our technology. So we're right at this prevention end. We are right at the end where people are just thinking, maybe alcohol, I don't know, shall I try this challenge? Do you think I could do it? And you say to somebody, could you do 90 days without having a drink? They're like, don't know, don't think I could. Right, well, we can help you. Because that's exactly where we want to get people. At the question stage, really early on. So we decided we needed to reinvest in our technology. Technology is absolutely key to this. Ultimately, we use technology to facilitate connection through behavior change. And so I was looking at going crowdfunding, and a friend of mine said to me, look, maybe you should ask your members to see if there's some investors there. So we wrote out an email, where we've been, where we want to go, and what we're trying to do in the world. And I said, I'm looking for 6-figure investors, people willing to commit at least 100,000. And I thought maybe I'd come into 1 or 2 emails, and I came in the next day to 74 emails. And emails from people who said, Ruari, I'm 55 years old, and I grew my business to 27 million last year, and the best investment I've ever made is the £109 I gave OneYearNoBeer. So we raised the funding very quickly. We raised some funding from Spartan Races, and I'll explain why that's important in a minute. We raised funding from one of the UK's most technologically advanced casinos. They were one of the first to invent VR and AI. And that could sound like almost like sleeping with the devil unless you realize that the reason why they are at the forefront, they want to be at the forefront of consumer health, and they want to be at the forefront of harm reduction. And that's why we're talking to the UK Gambling Commission. So where are we today? As I mentioned, over 40,000 members in 90 countries. At the moment, in reality, our platform is stuck together with duct tape and bits of things all stuck together to create a behavior change. But ultimately, we're using the most advanced process that we know today. And this is why we're encouraging all the scientific community and anybody out there who wants to collaborate with us on this project, on the app, on our next stages of introducing VR and AI into our app-based product, so that we can create a behavior change platform that is relevant in any form of negative habit change. Now, one of the key things about our program is about peer support. It must be, one of the things that we realized early on is that what kept us true to our decision to change our relationship with a negative behavior was being responsible for a community. And how can we empower other people to do the same thing? Well, we do that through creating a peer support and ambassador program. So an individual might come into our program simply by using the app. They might then decide to change their relationship with alcohol and be empowered and think, wow, I want to give back. By the way, 76% of our members want to volunteer or give back. They then learn to be coaches and go through a training program. And from that, they can then inspire people on a localized basis. They can host actives and socials. We don't call them meetups or meetings because we keep ourselves in the prevention space. People are having meetups at park runs, at Spartan obstacle course races, at sober raves, all of these things. It's about showing people that they can have fun, they can relax, they can have a good time without alcohol, and empowering them to support other people. I think that's us nearly there. So I guess the reason why we really wanted to speak here today is to reach out to everybody and say, you know, we are not scientists. We are not from a scientific background, and that's why we want to involve the people who really understand this. Of course, we've worked with the University of East London, Stirling University, and things like that. We're currently working with Professor B.J. Fogg of Stanford University on how our habit model works. Some really interesting stuff coming out from him in January 2020, so do check him out. But yes, that's our call to action, is please come and help us. Ultimately, our mission is to transform the world's relationship with alcohol, and we can't do that without your help. Thank you very much. Oh, any questions?
It's not a question, it's more of a thank you. I follow you guys on social media and on Instagram, and it's been really inspiring to see how these videos that you do daily.
All right.
And I'm 341 days so far.
Way!
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't do the program like officially. I haven't got the money or anything, but I do follow you guys.
That's what it's all about, you know. It's about making that wide reach impact. As I said, our hearts, we gave it away for free in the beginning. And this is why now we're developing, and I forgot to mention this, we've developed a corporate program, but we're also talking with some of the world's largest health insurers about using our program. Ultimately, for the health insurer, it's an absolutely no-brainer, isn't it, to get people to reduce alcohol consumption. For the company, it's of course a no-brainer, and for the individual, we've got to get them to inspire them. So I don't know, last week I was featured in the Telegraph and City AM in talking about what Lloyd's have done. So Lloyd's have come out and banned drinking, and they're testing people if they've had alcohol. I don't believe in prohibition. I don't believe in banning it. What I believe in is lighting that spark inside of people and showing them the benefits so that they don't want it anymore. So I'm so glad that you came in, and thank you so much for being a part of OneYearNoBeer. Of course, if you follow us, you're absolutely part of our...
What was your name? Rachel, right, I'll keep an eye out. And
You've done a shout out to me once.
oh, have I? Yeah. Well, I wait to look on the thing. But that's what it's about, I think, because we're in the prevention space. It's really nice for us. It's all aspirational and inspirational. You know, we can just take it a bit further away from the addiction space, which I think, unfortunately, is stigmatized in many ways. This is just about an aspirational challenge, and it's almost an early warning sign, I think, for lots of people just to dip their toe in. And this is why we're here today as well, that we want to build links with addiction specialists, because we do have members that come to us and they need extra help. We can't support them. We can't offer them the help that they need. Therefore, we want to build lots of relationships so we can move people in the right direction that we can't support, because we want to stay in the prevention area, the aspirational area, because it works. And that just sums it up. You know, we've got this program that helps people. It's specific, but it also inspires lots of people around the edges that come along and go, that's cool. Like a couple of guys just transforming their life around alcohol, and I think that's really important. So thanks for saying that.
Yeah, I just wanted to second what Andy said there about getting that journey really important, and we really got to work that out. So we do have a lot of people who come in and maybe they've bounced off the walls with different recovery and AA, and they've tried bits and pieces, and they're definitely higher up on the scale. Those are not the people for our audience, and we have to find a way of moving those people on into the right services. We've got to be at the prevention, and we've got to make that very clear to people and have the right processes in place to make that happen. Sarah Louise, who's here tomorrow, she's the one who's very, very focused on that part of what we do. Sorry.
I was going to ask, you mentioned you get people for your program who eventually become volunteers and stuff like that. I'm wondering how widespread you are as an organisation. I mean, I'm a part of the Drug and Alcohol Service down all the way up north in Hull. So I was wondering if there is any sort of outreach that goes on in that part.
At the moment, we're 100% online. We're in 90 countries, 40,000 members in 90 countries. In terms of our volunteer program, that's still very embryonic. So we have volunteers, they start off with something simple like just moderation into the communities, and it's an easy way for them to start to understand how we respond and monitor them. Then they would think about going into a coaching program. In terms of being an ambassador and hosting local meetups, volunteers will run a get-together, an active or social, but there's no framework around that yet, so we're still very much at the early stages.
But there are socials in Leeds,
Yeah.
Hull. We may have even had a social in Hull, but it's starting to grow, and I think that's what we're trying to, where we're going with this, like a Weight Watchers for alcohol in some ways. You know, that like localised meetups where people can run their own show and just inspire people, because it's all about connection, and the online connection is amazing. You know, Rachel was saying there earlier about just inspiring people. And it's I think the internet is best in many ways. Our community is unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just such a wonderful place to be. But to take that offline, I think, is the next step, because that human interaction is really important.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. Really great. Thank you.
Thank you.